Hey there, I recently made a vlog about finishing my residency in Nigeria, my medical residency, after 9 whole years. For those of us that practice medicine in Nigeria, we know how long a residency program will take or should take. So you understand why I'm emphasizing the 9 whole years. So as a follow-up to that, I decided to create this video. Keep watching. Hi, my name is Dr. Chandus. I'm a consultant public health physician and a health content creator based in Nigeria. Remember to subscribe to my channel to stay updated to my content as I make them. Like I said before the intro, I shall be talking about the mistakes I made during my residency program in Nigeria and also how to finish residency in record time. So the first mistake that I made, or thing that I wish I did better, was not hitting the ground running. Now, when I came into the program, or when I started residency program, I came in pregnant, or I keep saying I came in. I got into the program heavily pregnant. So in a few months, I was due, and then you know how it is for those of us that have kids, you know, the process of settling in and all that. It took me like 1 year to even understand what was going on in the program, to even understand, to even find my bearing. So that really affected me. Like I really didn't get into the flow of things till like a year after I started my residency program. The second thing I wish I did better, or mistake that I made, was not finding out what was required of me as a resident doctor in my training center. Now, this really affected me in the sense that even for my first part 1 exams, I'm going to do a video about what a residency program in Nigeria what a residency program in Nigeria entails. I'll leave the link somewhere in the description by the time I make that video. But this, like I was saying, affected me in the sense that I couldn't write my part 1 exams when everybody else was writing their exams, because I did not do some registrations when I was supposed to. So by the time my colleagues were going for exam, I couldn't go because I was not prepared. And the way these programs go, you have to make up to a certain period of time, like some months or some years, before you can qualify to go for exams. Now, I'm not only going to be talking about mistakes, I'm also going to be talking about what you can do to see that you do not make the mistakes that I made. Now, when you get into the program, meet your seniors, familiarize yourself, get into things immediately. Find out if you have a curriculum, because most faculties have what we call a curriculum. We have a logbook or a handbook that tells you what to do and all that. I'm sure it's much better now. Maybe it's the time I started my residency. I don't know, but I'm sure it's better now. So get that logbook or curriculum so that you can know the postings you should do, the number of years to complete before you finish your program and all that. So this is very, very important. Another mistake I made was that I was so distracted with my clinical work that my academics suffered. For those of us that are doctors in Nigeria or practicing in Nigeria, we know that a residency training involves providing clinical service and also doing your academic work, reading, providing and preparing for your exams and all that. But I was so carried away with my clinical work that, you know, it took me time to prepare myself. In fact, I was lucky that for my part 1, I was able to quickly gather myself and pass at first sitting. But then it took me, I was so carried away with coming to work, seeing patients and all that, and forgot that I was doing public health, which also required field work and some, you know, experiences which would have benefited me. So to not be so distracted by your clinical work, the burden of calls and all those things, for those of us that are in call intensive specialties, do not be so carried away that you forget that you also have to study at the end of your clinical work. Another major mistake that I made was forgetting that it was a postgraduate training. It was not an undergraduate training. That meaning that it's self-supervised, that for most of the time you'll be doing everything on your own. Nobody will come and tell you, you're not doing this right at this point, unless you have really good supervisors, or let me not say really good so that it doesn't look like I'm trashing anybody. Unless you have really patient supervisors or trainers who are maybe really invested in your training. The truth is, everybody is on their path towards something or towards some goal to achieve. Medicine is a never-ending specialty. People are always learning and seeking to improve themselves. So if you do not remember there is a postgraduate training, and then work on yourself and see that you can get some things done. You find that you don't get those things done. You will just be moving in the program. Nobody will tell you until maybe exams are hitting you or exam is hitting you, and then you find that you're running from pillar to post, and at the end of the day, maybe you don't pass that exam. Another mistake I made was not reading every day, guys. This was a major mistake. Like, those of us that are doctors, they tell you, you have to read every day, but you don't realize that you don't realize that you have to really read every day. There's a sea of information. I will use the specialty that, I did, public health, as an example. When you see public health, you feel like, well, when you hear public health, you feel like there's nothing going on there. But public health is so applied and practical that if you do not get your basics well, you find that you'll be floating at a time where you're not supposed to be floating. When your mates have sailed or your mates have gone far, and you'll be there struggling to catch up with them. And then if you don't read every day, you find they have so much to read that you cannot keep up. So that was a major mistake. And I would advise every resident, no matter your specialty, please read every day. Do not wait till your exams, because you will be overloaded, overflooded, and you will not find the experience funny at all. The next mistake I made was not starting my part 2 research on time and trivializing my research work. I practically waited till, in fact, it was up to 2 years after I finished my part 2 exams, I started talking about my research work. Fine, I even had a title. I had a concept at the back of my mind. I even did a concept note like a year after I passed the exam. But I abandoned it. Fine, there was childbearing and all that. I had like a child, almost 2 children in between and all that. But it still does not excuse the fact that I was not really as focused on my research as I should have. Please do not trivialize your research. For every resident, you must do research, and then it is good to get these papers. When you pass your exams, immediately begin to think of what you would like to do. I so admire some of my colleagues that knew what they were doing. They came in short time, 2 years after the exam, they had their papers ready, they had their book ready, they had their project topic ready and everything, and they wrote their exams and left me, who was their chief, there. I was still there answering chief, and people, my younger colleagues, had passed and left. So please focus. Remember what you should do at every time. Your research is very important. Getting papers is very important. So do not trivialize that. Another mistake I made was not studying past questions as much as I should have studied them, right? Now, we're all here, for those of us that are preparing for exams, we're always told, study past questions or study past. In fact, I was telling people to study past questions, but I realized at the end of my part 2 exams that I was not studying them as seriously as I should have studied them. Like my last exam, I don't know. I can't really explain what happened at that, because I had 2 attempts before I passed my last exam, as against my part 1 exam where it was 1 attempt. So read your past questions. The new questions do not come from Adam. Fine, they may be rephrased, but I find that these basic concepts that are in your curriculum do not really change, unless it's in a specialty like public health, where it's so vast and diverse. Like, they can ask you one question in 10 millions of different ways, but still study your past questions with intention, like intentionally study them. Especially for some colleges. There are some colleges that are notorious for repeating their questions, like 80% or 90% of the questions that come are from their past questions. They don't get it from anywhere else. Take it from me. I've written this exam. Now, the final mistake, which I regret it tomorrow, was going for an exam when I was bereaved. Now, I know this might not be something that is something that may apply to a lot of persons, but I felt it was a mistake I made, so there was no need to leave it out. I went for an exam when I had lost some of my relatives. I lost my dad, and I went for that exam, and it was the first time in my life, yes, in my life, that I had failed a medical exam. Like, I came out for the exam from exam, I couldn't believe that it was me that failed the exam. I was in the hall, I was during the orals, it was like, will I call it an out-of-body experience? I cannot really till today explain what happened. Some of the questions are questions that I had read, I had studied for, but I came out and I did not pass the exam. I did not realize how hit I was, like how hard I had taken that bereavement till I came out from that exam. And even till I had written the next exam. It was when I wrote the next exam that I realized how hit I was. So if you are not prepared, in essence, what I'm saying is, If you find that for some reason you are not ready for the exam, there's no need to deceive yourself by going for that exam. I know that I'd already registered because I was due for exam just before COVID, and then when COVID came, they moved the exam, and then by the time they put the exam, I had lost my dad. But then, if you're not prepared, in hindsight, could I have shifted the exam? I don't know. But then if you're not prepared, if you look at yourself, these exams are expensive. That's the truth. For some colleges that pay in dollars, we're talking of 500,000 of nairas, 400,000. No exam is less than, by the time you put everything, at least you'd have spent at least 400 to 500,000. At least. Some people spend up to 800. By the time you pay your dues and all those things, you find that you have spent a lot of money. So instead of going to waste your money, be sure that don't go to the exam feeling like, okay, let me just go and try. I may pass, I may not pass. There's no point going for the exam if you are not ready. So be ready before you go for your exam. The last thing I'll say is residency is a preparation for your future practice as a specialist. Always keep that at the back of your mind. Above and over everything that you do while you are in the training, remember that it is temporary and you are there to achieve something. Make sure you achieve that goal. Keep everything aside, and you will find that you will have the sheer will that you need to become a specialist, because you do need sheer will to complete your training as a resident doctor and become a specialist. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope that someone learned something from this video. Thank you so much.